Good evening. I welcome you to Strange Nexus, your portal to the realms of the strange, spooky, and unexplained. On tonight's episode, I bring to you the story of a retired Spec Ops soldier. He recounts his mission to hunt down a Nephilim, better known as a giant.
I've seen things most people can't even imagine. I've been a special ops soldier for over a decade, and I've faced threats that would make your blood run cold. But nothing in this world or the next could have prepared me for the horrors I encountered on that fateful night. It was the mission that would haunt my nightmares for the rest of my days. The mission to hunt down Nephilim, better known as giants. Our secret unit had been tasked with tracking and eliminating these monstrous creatures that had terrorized humanity for centuries. Most people dismissed giants as mere legends, but we knew better. We had seen the destruction they could cause, and we were the only line of defense against them. Our unit was small and highly specialized, consisting of only 5 operatives. There was Captain Reynolds, the fearless leader who had seen it all. Then there was Sergeant O'Connor, the quiet but deadly sniper who never missed a shot. Corporal Ramirez, the explosives expert with nerves of steel. Private Martinez, the tech genius who could hack into any system. And finally, there was me, Sergeant John Mitchell, the point man, and close quarters combat specialist. Our last deployment would prove to be our most challenging yet. We had received intel about a giant, one unlike any we had encountered before. This giant was said to be more vicious, more cunning, and more relentless than any of its predecessors. We were ordered to locate and eliminate it before it could wreak havoc on an unsuspecting world. We were dropped deep into the wilderness, miles away from civilization. The forest was dense and the air was thick with tension. The moon cast an eerie glow on the towering trees, turning them into menacing silhouettes. We moved in complete silence, our every step carefully calculated. Hours turned into days as we followed the trail of destruction left by the giant. Trees snapped like toothpicks, and the ground was marked with massive footprints. The stench of rotting flesh hung in the air, a foul reminder of the giant's presence. As we ventured deeper into the forest, I couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease. It was as if the very woods were alive, watching, waiting. The silence was deafening, broken only by the rustling of leaves or the occasional distant howl of a wolf. On the third night, as we huddled around a small campfire, Captain Reynolds finally broke the silence. "This giant, it's different," he said, his voice low and filled with a grim determination. "We need to be prepared for anything." Sergeant O'Connor nodded, his eyes never leaving the darkness beyond the fire's glow. "Agreed. We can't afford any mistakes." We all knew what that meant. Giants were known for their cunning and their ability to set traps. We had to be vigilant every second of the day. Even the slightest lapse in judgment could be our undoing. The next morning, we found ourselves standing on the edge of a massive clearing. In the center of the clearing stood a colossal tree, its gnarled roots twisting into the earth like the claws of some ancient beast. At the base of the tree lay a gruesome sight, the remains of a deer, torn to shreds. Ramirez examined the carcass and grimaced. "This isn't the work of any ordinary predator," he said. "This is a warning." Martinez nodded in agreement. "The giant knows we're getting closer. It's trying to intimidate us." Captain Reynolds clenched his jaw. "We won't be intimidated, we press on." We moved cautiously into the clearing, our weapons at the ready. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows that seemed to dance with malevolent intent. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of a branch set our nerves on edge. As we reached the massive tree, a low, guttural growl echoed through the clearing. We spun around, our weapons trained on the source of the sound. Emerging from the shadows was the giant, a towering monstrosity that defied all reason. It stood at least 15 feet tall, its grotesque body covered in mottled, leathery skin. Its arms were thick and sinewy, ending in gnarled claws that could tear through steel. Its eyes glowed with a sickly yellow light, and its mouth was filled with jagged, rotting teeth. I felt a shiver run down my spine as I stared up at the abomination before us. This was no ordinary giant. This was a nightmare given form. The giant let out another deafening roar, and with blinding speed it lunged at us. Bullets and explosives erupted in a flurry of chaos as we desperately tried to fend off the creature. But it was relentless, shrugging off our attacks as if they were nothing. In the midst of the chaos, I saw Captain Reynolds go down. his body crushed beneath the giant's massive foot. The sight of our fearless leader falling sent a shockwave of panic through the rest of us. "Sergeant Mitchell, fall back," yelled Sergeant O'Connor. "We need to regroup." I hesitated for a moment, torn between my duty and the instinct to run. But there was no time to mourn the fallen. I turned and sprinted through the trees, the sounds of battle fading behind me. I ran for what felt like hours, my heart pounding in my chest. The forest seemed to close in around me, the trees whispering their secrets and the shadows reaching out to grab me. I was alone, and I was being hunted. Eventually, I stumbled upon a small cave, hidden deep within the woods. It was a temporary sanctuary, a place to catch my breath and formulate a plan. I knew I couldn't take down the giant on my own, but I couldn't leave my comrades to their fate either. I pulled out my radio and tried to establish contact with the others, but all I heard was static. They were either too far away or unable to respond. I was truly alone. Hours passed as I sat in that cave, my mind racing. I knew I had to find a way to defeat the giant and rescue my team. But how could I take down something so monstrous, so otherworldly? As night fell, I ventured back out into the forest, armed with a new determination. I would find the giant and I would end this nightmare once and for all. I followed the trail of destruction left by the giant, hoping it would lead me to its lair. Along the way, I encountered other signs of its presence, the twisted remains of animals, eerie symbols carved into the trees, and the pervasive feeling that I was being watched. Eventually, I reached a clearing much larger than the one where we had first encountered the giant. In the center of the clearing stood a massive stone circle, ancient and weathered. It was covered in strange runic symbols that seemed to pulse with an unnatural energy. As I approached the stone circle, I felt a chill run down my spine. This was no ordinary place. It was a place of dark magic, a place where the giant drew its power. I knew I had to destroy it. I retrieved a satchel of explosives from my pack and began setting them up around the stone circle. Sweat dripped from my brow as I worked quickly, knowing that the giant could return at any moment. Just as I was about to detonate the explosives, I heard a sound behind me, a low, guttural growl. I turned slowly, my heart pounding, and there it was, the giant, emerging from the shadows like a nightmare. It was even more grotesque up close, its breath rancid and its eyes filled with malice. It let out a bone-chilling roar and charged at me, its massive claws outstretched. I barely had time to react, diving to the side as the giant's claws scraped the ground where I had been standing. I rolled to my feet and fired my weapon, but the bullets seemed to have little effect. The giant swung its massive arm at me, and I narrowly dodged, feeling the rush of wind as it passed. I knew I couldn't outrun this creature, so I had to stand my ground. I lured the giant closer to the explosives, using all my skill and training to stay one step ahead of it. With a final desperate gambit, I sprinted toward the detonator and hit the button just as the giant lunged at me. The explosion that followed was deafening, a blinding flash of fire and smoke. The force of the blast knocked me off my feet and I tumbled through the air, landing hard on the forest floor. When I finally came to, I was battered and bruised, but miraculously, I was alive. I looked around and all that remained of the giant was a smoldering crater where the stone circle had once stood. I knew I had done it. I had defeated the giant and destroyed the source of its power. But at what cost? My comrades were gone, and I was alone in the heart of the haunted forest. As I stumbled back through the woods, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that the shadows themselves were closing in on me. The giant may have been defeated, but the darkness it had unleashed still lingered. In the end, I made it out of the forest, battered and broken but alive. I reported back to headquarters, and they sent a team to recover what was left of my unit. The mission was a success, but the cost was high. I've retired from the Special Ops unit now, haunted by the memories of that night. I know that the giants are still out there, lurking in the shadows, waiting for their next opportunity to strike. And I can't help but wonder if there are other horrors in this world, lurking just out of sight, waiting for their chance to unleash terror upon humanity. The giants were just the beginning, and I fear that the darkness they represent runs deeper than any of us can imagine. So I share this story now as a warning, a testament to the horrors that exist in the world, hidden away in the shadows. Be vigilant, for you never know what might be lurking just beyond your sight, waiting to strike when you least expect it. And remember, when the night is darkest and the forest is silent, the giants may still be out there watching, waiting, and hungering for blood.
This reality never ceases to amaze me. What a tale. Now click subscribe and like this video for more Strange Nexus.